Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Programming with a Purpose. So in this video, we are going to create an audio recording UI just like that of WhatsApp, in which you can basically long press a microphone and then two of the further gestures appear, in which you can cancel the audio recording or you can lock the audio recording and the remaining gestures that are present inside those UI. So for that purpose, first let's create a utils file inside our previous project with the name of Explore tab gestures. I have covered individual gestures as well as the combination of gestures to create complex interactions in my previous two videos. If you haven't watched them, please go through them. I'm going to paste their link in the description box. And after that, you can basically continue with this video and build the audio recording UI with me to understand the practical application of those gesture concepts. So this function is going to return a string in the form of minutes, colon, seconds with two spaces for minutes and two spaces for seconds using the function time string. After that, I'm going to create an enum which is going to basically give us the gesture states. So if there is a gesture state with left drag, upward drag, long pressed, and when no input is basically presented to our microphone, which means that the no control is pressed. So first we are going to create the UI of the log audio view. I'm going to show you in a while what this view looks like, and then I'm going to build it. So here I'll be adding some of the properties inside my log audio view. So the first one is the seconds, which will help us to calculate the seconds that have elapsed when we have started the voice recording. Next is basically is recording, which is going to basically play or pause our recording. This is the Boolean value. Then there is an audio text. So the audio text is basically the waveform, and I have basically replaced it with the text to just show you the output. So this is how the view is going to look like. This is the log audio view, and I've shown you how I have reached this view with the help of different gestures. So first we are going to create a V stack that will contain two H stacks you can see in the view. So the first H stack will contain the duration, the waveform, and the one which basically shows you that you want to send this voice and the other person can listen it once or many times. This is a feature added by WhatsApp recently. Then there are three buttons at the bottom which will be contained in another H stack. So here I'm creating a property with the name of timer, which is basically going to publish this timer every second on the main thread. So I'm going to receive that timer inside the text, and what I'm going to do here is basically if is recording is true, which means that we are currently recording the voice, seconds will be incremented. And you can see on the right hand side in the preview that the timer is working properly. So the next step is the creation of the text. It is not the text in the actual app. It will be a waveform that is going to show you the amplitude of your voice, how loud and what are the different frequencies that are present inside the voice. But I am since not implementing the audio recording feature, but just want to show you the gestures inside the UI. So I have created this UI with just a text with the name of audio text. And here I have added a small animation to it, which means that when it is being, the waveform is being appended, the uh, dots that are appearing or the waveform that is appearing is going to basically animated on the screen in front of your eyes. So here I'm setting the line limit and truncation and other properties, multi-line text alignment to trailing, so that the timer remains at its place and we can add the text. So the first 8 stack is completed. I haven't added the one value because I could not find the art which corresponds to this one on the right hand side on the top 8 stack. Now I am creating the bottom 8 stack. It is going to contain the first button, which is a trash button. I have got the icon from the system name. You can check basically all of these icons inside the SF symbols provided by Apple. Now here I'm adding another variable with the name of gesture states, which is going to correspond to the gesture state which we are handling at the moment, because it is going to alter our UI. So here we have presented it with the default value, which we are going to raise towards the final creation of this UI. Now I'm going to create another button, which is going to basically alter between play and pause. When we are going to we can pause the recording as well as we can continue with the recording. So here I'm adding these play dot circle and pause dot circle, which are again the SF symbols. And why I'm using this font system size is basically to enlarge these icons, because you cannot enlarge it with any other property, but you can basically enlarge it with the font size. If you provide a bigger value greater than 25, they are going to appear bigger on the preview. So next I'm going to basically just creating an arrow, which is not like the arrow that is present in WhatsApp, but I've just used a simple SF symbol for that, which is going to basically send this audio. So in the button action, you can write the code to send this audio to the sender you are basically recording this audio for. Here I've created some of the spaces to make it more real. Next, I'm going to create this view. This is the next view, which is basically the no input view, which means that the default state of the audio recording. So here I'm passing some of the properties, declaring them. So the first one is the gesture state. And then I'm going to create a long press gesture here with some of the events. So in the definition of events, you have seen that in onChanged, we have reset the gesture state to no input. And after that, when it's ended, the long press gesture, we are going to set it to as dot long pressed. And then we have set a variable is floating to true. Why we are setting it is to true is basically, I'm going to show you in a while what this variable is doing for us inside this view. So this is the gesture that we have created, and we are going to apply it to our mic icon on the right hand side. So first we are going to create an 8 stack, which is going to create a plus button, then a text field, then a camera button, and then a mic. So here I am basically using the default SF symbols. The first one is the plus, and I have set the font system size to 30 to enlarge it. Here I am setting the foreground color to blue in almost all of the cases in this view. You can set it to white or to any other color you want. So after that, there is going to be a background in our text field, which is going to be a rounded rectangle. So here I'm creating that, and I'm setting the stroke color to blue. So it does not exactly resembles the UI. You need to basically change the color of the text field to light gray when you are dealing with the dark mode. And the foreground color is set to blue, which is basically the color of the text inside this text field if you start typing the text. Now I'm adding the button here with the SF symbol, which is going to be the camera. And I'm enlarging it with a font size of 30. Since I haven't implemented the capturing functionality, again, because we are working with the gestures only, so I haven't implemented any of the action of this button. Next, I'm going to create the mic. So here I'm not using the button. Why I'm not using the button is basically, think about it and see here. So basically I've added a gesture here. We need to add a gesture here, and gesture is just like a tapping of a button with obviously advanced functionality. So we need to add a gesture. We do not need to add a button, because button is basically a single tap or a click, and we need to add a just a UI that is basically can be handled with this gesture of long press. So here I'm changing at the rate of state to binding for our gesture states because we need to basically pass this gesture state from our main view. And it can be altered by our sub views. So in both of the views, no input view and lock audio view, we are going to pass the binding variable gesture state. Now I'm going to create our main view, which is going to be the WhatsApp audio recording view. So first I'm going to declare some of the properties, then some gestures, and then I'm going to basically check the gesture state, and according to that I'm going to display the input view. So here I'm copying some of the variables from different views. So here I'm setting the gesture state as dot no input. So basically we will be starting from the default state. So here I'm set two of the variables is floating and is animating are set to true and false. Why we are going to use it, you will be understanding in a few moments when I'm going to use these variables. So here I'm also declaring a position variable with the default position as 0, 0. So let's start creating the body of this view. So first we are going to create a drag gesture. So in drag gesture, what we are doing is basically we are using the gesture state and declaring it as dot left drag for drag gesture number 1. And then we are going to reset our seconds, which means that whenever it is going to be dragged, our seconds are going to be reset after some delay. So here I'm providing that delay with using dispatch queue.main.async after. And same is with the drag gesture up, which is going to handle the upward drag. And I've set the gesture state to dot upward drag. So next I'm going to switch between the different gesture states and then I'm going to display the input view. So for no input, I'm going to show you the no input view with the gesture state that is set as the binding state of this gesture state variable we have inside this WhatsApp recording view. Then I'm going to pass the lock audio view with the gesture state just like the no input view. And next I'm going to create the view for our left drag, which means that when the left drag is pressed, what is going to happen. So next I've set the gesture state to dot left drag so that we'll be able to see that how the preview is going to look like when we are adding the elements. So here you can see here that when we are left swiping, the audio mic goes inside the trash bin and that animation is being played. So here I'm going to recreate that animation, but not the exact one, only halfway through it. So basically, when this is going to appear, we are going to use a with animation, and that is going to be a linear animation with a certain duration. And next I'm going to change the position of this mic, which is going to move upward, and after some time it is going to disappear, which means that it is being deleted. So you have seen here that I'm scheduling a timer to play this animation, which is going to be repeated true with a time interval of 0.1 between each frame. And here it is going to basically updating the position of mic across X and Y axis. So if we only manipulate the X, it is going to move horizontally, but we want to basically move it along 2 axes. So I'm also altering the Y position. Removing some of the errors to give it a trajectory. So this is how it's going to move. It is going to move upward, and it is going to move at a very high position. But we are going to basically place a value boundary that whenever it is going to be less than -15, is animating is going to be set as false, and gesture state is going to be changed, which means that the mic will stop moving and we are going to move to our default state. Next, we are going to add a spacer, and next a text slide to cancel, and then an arrow along with the mic. These are some of the elements that are added towards the right of this animation. So next we are creating another view, which is going to be the long pressed view. Whenever the mic is pressed, two of the gestures are going to open up. One is the slide to cancel animation, and another one is basically the upward drag, which means to lock the video. So we need to create here the view, which means that whenever it is going to be long pressed, we are going to basically go into the other gesture states that we have already created. So let's create this view. This is when the mic is already long pressed. So this is the view that is going to be the upward view, the upward, which can be upwardly dragged. So this is going to contain a lock and an arrow. The lock is being opened and closed inside the original animation, but since I do not have access to that art asset, I'm going to use a default symbol of lock here. And here we are going to use this is floating, which is going to basically fluctuate and move it to on the y-axis, up and down, just like our original animation. And this is the arrow that we have added. So here I'm adding some of the boundary padding, leading and trailing, and then I'm adding a background of rounded rectangle. And here I'm setting the color to white to show you the size and basically the look of it. And I'm going to set it to black because we are using here the dark mode. If you want basically this UI to be working for both of the dark and light appearance, you need to add here basically an if statement then, or a color that basically corresponds to a dark and light appearance. So a frame height is set, which is 100, and in on appear, I'm going to play an animation, which is ease in out, and that is going to repeat forever. And that is going to alter our is floating variable. So that it is going to basically start floating and then stop floating and start floating and stop floating with this animation. So here I'm fixing the issue of some brackets here. So let's fold the V stack and see here that if the elements are properly nested inside the brackets. You can fix this issue on your own, and then you can compare your code with the code that I've presented here. So the major thing is basically the arrow is not part of the V stack. So I've added here, and you can see on the right hand side, the elements are now floating. The speed will be quite less when you are going to implement it. But since here I have played this video on a higher speed, so these elements are moving at a higher velocity. So next we are going to create another 8 stack, which is going to be the 8 stack that is at the bottom of this 8 stack. So it is going to contain a mic that is going to be fluctuating, and its opacity is going to be fluctuating. It is going to be basically dimming and then turning bright, dimming and then turning bright, just like a heartbeat. And then we are going to add a time string using the function of time string that we have added inside utils. Here I'm going to receive the timer, and I'm going to update the seconds. Then a spacer, and then a text slide to cancel. Then an arrow, and then a mic. Basically, this is the view that is basically overlapping with the view that we have previously created. These are just 4 or 5 elements. You can create a separate view for that, and you can reuse it at 2 different locations. So after that, our UI will be completed. Then we are going to test these gestures, that are they working properly. So now the UI is almost complete. We are going to reset the value of the gesture states to no input, so that we will start testing it from our default state. Now here I'm going to call this WhatsApp audio recording view inside the content view, and let's play the code. So here I'm long pressing the audio button. When I'm going to slide it, the animation is being played, and we are going to move back to default state. Here I'm upward dragging it, and it's not working, which means that we did not add the gesture to our upward V stack. So let's add that. Let's move to our main view, and let's see where we can add this gesture. So we have a drag gesture up that we need to add. So we are going to find the place where we are going to add this gesture. So we will be adding the gesture on this 8 stack, the log.open. This is the arrow. This is the place where we need to add that. So here inside the V stack, I'm adding that gesture, drag gesture up. So now it should work. Let's test it again inside the simulator. So here the upward drag is working, and we are moved to our log audio view. So here you can start and stop the audio recording. You can delete it, and you are going to move back. Now I'm going to test it again to see that if the timer is reset, and yes, it does. So everything is working perfectly. This is the view that we have created using a long press gesture and a drag gesture. I really wanted to show you a combination of gestures, but in this part of the UI, no combination gesture can be used because all of the gestures are independent of each other. So this is all. I hope you have learned something from it. Do not forget to like and share this video, subscribe to my channel because it will encourage me to create more helpful videos. Thanks for watching.